Welcome back to the channel. One of the strategies that you can use to reduce the cost of your projects is to buy used parts. I know a lot of you guys are doing this. There are a few used parts that I always recommend against. Fuel injectors is one. Even if they were good when they were taken out, they can get gummed up just sitting in a plastic bag over time, and usually guys want such a high percentage of new price for them. They're better off to just buy new. Superchargers is another. They typically have bearing problems, bracketry missing, hardware missing, and by the time you fix it and chase down all the missing hardware, you wish you just bought a new one. But cylinder heads are something you can often get away with used. So today I'm going to show you a few things that you can do with a used set of cylinder heads to inspect them and confirm that they're going to work correctly once you install them on your engine. The stuff I'm going to show you is basically the same for any cylinder heads, for any brand, maybe with the exception of overhead cam heads, which have a few more steps. You need to be checking the cam journals and the cams, which are usually on the heads and so on. But for any cam and block heads, it's all the same kind of procedures, whether it's GM or Dodge, Ford, whatever. What I have here is a set of trick flow twisted wedge heads for 5-liter Ford, which came in with Project Bad Decision in the parts bill. Originally, I was going to put these heads in a RPM2 manifold on the car, but I decided to just go straight to a Godzilla, so I'm going to sell these heads. And before I sell them, I'm going to inspect them so that I have a clean conscience when I sell them to the next guy, that they're really in good shape. When you're buying used heads, you're not always going to have time or the opportunity to do all of the steps that I'm showing you here today. You probably should do most of these steps before you actually put them on the car. Some of them you can do when you're buying the heads. We're going to start with the simplest checks, and we're going to move through the whole range of checks to satisfy yourself that the heads are going to work when you put them on the car. So obviously, I'd say the first thing to look for is, what is the overall outward condition of the heads? Are they all dinged up? Does it look like they've been kicking around in the corner of somebody's garage and getting stuff dropped on them and whatnot for years? Or do they look like heads that maybe sort of just came off an engine and are in nice shape? These heads, when I did an outward visual inspection of them, look okay to me. One of the keys is the deck surface. So you want to look at this deck surface for a whole bunch of scratches and scars, damage on the surface. A little bit of scratching, micro scratching is okay. If there's deep scars in them, you're going to have trouble with head gasket sealing. You're going to have budget to machine them. And if it's a set of trick flow heads like this that are 202 valve and you intended to put them on a stock bottom end 5-liter, which normally they do fit, if you shave them, you may find that you start to get into piston to valve clearance problems. So you want to look for problems like that. These heads have some minor scratching, and you know, if you run your fingernail across, that's one of the best ways to check whether those scratches are deep. If your fingernail catches, you got a problem. If your fingernail goes over it smoothly, like on these little micro scratches, they're not that deep. They're really just a scuff on the surface, and that's not that big of a problem. What else goes wrong with heads? Well, the guides could be bad. The springs could be bad. The valve seals could be bad. And they could be warped. So we're going to go through and check to see if these heads are warped. We're going to check for valve guide problems. We're going to check the spring pressures, and we're going to have an eyeball on the seals. Plus, if there's any way, I'm going to see if I can measure the CC on these chambers to see whether they've been shaved. Okay, I brought the cylinder heads over to my teardown table, and we're going to start getting a little bit of a look at them. Now, here I've got some good light on them. We can see, you know, the remnants of the head gasket. They haven't really been cleaned up since they've been taken off. But you see marks all along here on the valves. The guy that I bought these heads from swore to me that he had disassembled them and checked the guides. This is a good sign because these are witness marks from a valve spring compressor tool. I would say that after these heads were removed from the car, it sure looks like somebody disassembled them to check them. So that's a good sign that the guy you bought them from was being straight with you. I'm not going to do all of them as long as we don't see any problems, but I'm going to pull a couple of them to verify. Warpage is one of the most common problems. It happens because of overheating in particular. It can happen because of a bad head bolt clamp because somebody didn't know how to torque the head bolts on and so on. So this is actually something you can check for when you're buying the heads. And all you're really going to need for this is a straight edge like this 3-foot level and a feeler gauge. The way you're going to check for warpage is, I mean, you can do this visually even if you don't have a feeler gauge, where you put the straight edge on and just kind of run it over the head and look for any areas where you think there might be a high or low spot. So, I mean, visually this looks okay, but the real way to do this is with a feeler gauge. So you take your feeler gauge set and you pick out, let's say, about the smallest feeler gauge that you can. If not, then I'm going to say pick out 5 thou. So let's start with that and we'll see if 5 thou slips underneath this anywhere. Nope. You can see that's only going to the magnet. If I switch it over to the other side that doesn't have the magnet on, I don't get 5 thou slipped under there anywhere. I try this in a few different places. Let's hold this level. No. Okay, so we think that looks good. Let's try the thinnest gauge that we have, which is 2 thou. Now, frankly, if there was a 2 thou warpage, the head gasket would probably pick that up. No, I'm not even sure that 2 thou is, that this edge, straight edge, is got 2 thou of tolerance. But you can see I really can't slip 2 thou in there anywhere. We'll try it across the surfaces, straight across and diagonally. So I'm going to say that for all intents and purposes, this head is not warped. These heads look nice and straight, so that's good. You're also going to look at them for cracks, anything like that. I didn't see any cracks on these heads. That all looks good as well. Just to give you an idea of how the valve train is assembled, you've got a valve, you've got keepers or locks, they're called here. You've got a retainer, and you've got the spring. The locks are tapered, and they seat in the retainer, which sits over the spring, and they also seat in a little groove at the top of the valve. So in order to disassemble them, what you have to do is compress the spring enough that you can pull the locks out. Then take the pressure off the spring, and then you can take the whole spring and retainer assembly off, and then the valve can be pulled out the other side. Also inside here is a valve seal. So that keeps oil from running down the valve stem into the cylinder and contaminating the combustion chamber. All right, so how do you do this? Well, there are on the head spring removal tools. Most of them don't work all that great. But the best way to do it, especially on the bench, is with a tool like this. This is a serious valve spring compressor. Now, in order to adjust this tool, you can see if I pull this handle, it's going to press down, lock over center, and that should hold the spring in place. Now, I will say these springs are under a lot of pressure. Even production springs or, mild street heads like this, the seat pressure on these springs is probably going to be in the 120 to 140 PSI range. So wear safety glasses when you work on this. If something lets go, you can shoot a lock into your eye. On the more extreme cars like my drag car, the seat pressure is 330 pounds. So if that lets go when you're working on it, ping, you got parts going everywhere. And where you don't want them to go is in your eye. So make sure you use safety glasses. When you go to set this up, the way to do it is you open the tool. We'll slip the tool over the spring head. We'll tighten it up onto the valve head. Just get it sort of gently on there and get it centered. Then we'll just gently compress. Then we can take the locks out. Then we can gently release the tool, keep control of it. Take the tool off. And then you can take out the retainer and the spring, which sometimes is caught in the little cup, which you might have to press off. Keep the spring in the correct orientation. This is the upside, so keep it up so you can put it back together the same. Then you can press on the valve, you can rotate the valve, then we can turn the heads around, check for play on the guides, and get a look at the valve seats. One thing I'll draw your attention to is, because of this lock groove in the valve stem, when you're checking for guide clearance or you're checking the seats of the valves, it's best to avoid having the lock groove go past the seal. Pulling the lock groove back and forth past the seal repeatedly could actually damage the seal. So, we get a look at the seal. It doesn't look like it's bad, and we don't see contamination in the port here where there's been oil leaking past the seals. So I think the seals are probably good. So we'd like to avoid going past the seals with the lock groove to avoid damaging them. Okay, so we got that loose. We can turn it around and we can check, does it turn smoothly in the guides or is it jammed? And does it have any up or down or side to side play? And for all intents and purposes, it has none. It's got some clearance, but that's about it. Then we would like to get a look at these seats as well. And we can even, say, spray a little brake clean or something in there, put the valve down, and then turn it against the seats and see how clean that turns. And then when we pull that away, we'll get a better look of whether there's high spots or anything in there, which it doesn't look like there is. Try and get a little look at the seat there. It looks pretty clean to me. I pan the light across it. In reality, it looks pretty good, and the valve turns nice and smooth against it, so it's probably fine. To put it back together, it's just the reverse. Get the valve pressed through, take your spring, which is in the correct orientation, put it on there, take your retainer and put that on there, see if you can get it to stay. Then take your tool, slide it over, snug it up to the valve, check where you're at, and compress it. Okay, once it's compressed, you can put your locks in. And when you put the locks on, you can put a little grease on. These actually had a little bit of grease on them, which is another sign that they were recently taken apart. If you've got the tool adjusted so that it's pretty close to the locks, lots of times you don't have to do anything. They'll stay in place. Or you can kind of get them like that. And like I said, there is already a little bit of grease on there. When you go to release the spring, do it gently and watch. Stay off to the side in case something slips and it pops a lock. And just make sure that that retainer is going over both locks and that the locks stay in place. Then you can take the tension off, take the tool out. You can feel it. It's all together there. Looks good. That's put back together. This is an on-the-head spring pressure tester. Now the way it works is you clip onto the back of the rocker arm with this. This little notch here goes in the push rod, and then this surface goes on the surface of the rocker arm at the valve. Then you lift on the tool and you measure how much pressure it takes to just move the valve off the seat. Now, this isn't ideal. It's meant for an assembled engine that actually has a push rod, but I think we're going to get a test with this. So let's put it on and give it a try. I'm going to get this rocker arm kind of roughly in place. I want to get the end under the back of the rocker arm and try and get that centered. Get it roughly centered on the valve spring. So then what we're going to do is we just lift until we start to see that valve come off the seat. And you just move it a little bit like that. And we're right around 110 pounds, maybe just slightly less than 110 pounds, which is probably the standard spring package, the lighter spring package. We'll try the exhaust valve as well. It's just off the seat and it's over 110. So that's probably the standard springs, 110 or so on the seat. We can do a little checking with TrickFlow specs, and I'm sure that will confirm that this is the standard spring set, the lighter spring set. Okay, the last thing we're going to do here is the sort of most iffy, least precise thing we can do. But that is, we're going to try and get a measurement of the combustion chamber volume on these cylinder heads. So how are we going to do that? First things first, we set the head up so that it is level. And it's almost dead level according to my digital gauge. I just shimmed it with some body filler mixers and boards here just to get it exactly right. According to my digital gauge, it looks right on. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to pour a liquid into the chamber and fill it until it overflows. Now, one of the best things you can use for this is cooking oil. It's not going to hurt the cylinder head. It's going to clean up fairly well, and it's inexpensive and something that you have. To measure it, I've got one of these little paint measuring cups here. So let's go ahead and get some cooking oil, and we'll start pouring it in there, and we'll see. And I guess we also need to put a spark plug in there just to be sure. Okay, I got that dead level. I'm going to pour. This cup is 30 milliliters or 30 cc's, so I'm going to fill that up to 30 cc's. That's right on the 30 cc line. Then I'm going to pour that in. This should be something like half of the combustion chamber. Okay, so then let's put in another 20. That'll be 50. That looks right on the 20 line. We'll pour that in. Now, this chamber should be something like 58 or 61 cc's. So this little cup has finer graduations at the bottom. Okay. 57.5, that's about 58, obviously. Let's pour this in and see if it overflows. And I'll tell you, it's pretty well on the meniscus there. So we got 57.5 in there. It's sort of right on the meniscus here, and it's just below the edge over there. If I put another 5 in, that'd be 62.5. Okay, actually that's about 2.5. So this should be 60. Let's see if that overflows. And I'm probably not getting all of it out of there, 72.5. This measurement is not as precise as you would like it to be, but that is filled right to the brim. I've put 75 millimeters approximately of olive oil in there, and it's right at the absolute brim. So we say this combustion chamber measured 75. It's probably not a 75 millimeter combustion chamber. However, there'll be some amount of space opened up by the spark plug. The most important thing here is if I put 75 milliliters of olive oil in here before it was right at the top, and that's approximate, as you can see, like there's a little bit left in there, so I didn't add 2.5 every time. There's no way that these heads have been shaved. No way. These are stock height heads, and that could be an important piece of data in terms of putting them on a production bottom end. If they've been shaved, you might have trouble. When they're not shaved, you won't. Okay, so what did we learn today? We inspected these heads pretty thoroughly. The short story is these are perfectly serviceable heads. It looks to me like they are original trick flow twisted wedge heads. They've got the base valve spring package, which I looked it up, and that should be 110 on the seat. That's around where we are, probably just short of 110. So the springs are probably in reasonable shape as well. I put quite a lot, I don't know, 75 milliliters or something of cooking oil in a combustion chamber before it overflowed. That tells me there's no way that these heads are milled. They're probably what Trick Flow calls the 61cc chamber cylinder heads. The heads look like they were straight and true. I couldn't slip 2 thou underneath the long level anywhere. The valve seals looked okay to me, and I checked a couple of valves. The guides look fine, and it looks like the heads were disassembled. The guy I bought them from told me he disassembled them and checked all the guides and they were all good. The ones I checked were good, and they have witness marks for all of them having been disassembled, and there's fresh grease on the locks and so on. So I'm sure that he told me the truth about that, and the ones I checked were good, so we're going to assume all the rest of them are good as well. That's a real nice set of used cylinder heads. They're going to make a great addition to a 5-liter Ford. If you're going to run a bigger cam like the Trick Flow Stage 2, you should probably upgrade the spring package to Trick Flow's optional track heat spring package. Outside of that, that's a nice set of heads ready to go. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoy the channel, please subscribe, give me a like, and especially leave a comment. That's what helps me the most. I'm going to put a couple of videos up around my head here that YouTube thinks you're going to like. Have a look at those. We'll see you next time.